Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our EQ Nexus YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking to Cass, who is super passionate about the role of adults in supporting children with emotional intelligence. So, today, we're talking specifically about parents.
Yes.
And Cass, I'm wondering, as a psychologist, do you see a crossover between psychology and emotional intelligence in the way that parents might support children through difficult moments?
Massively, Heidi. And I think when we were talking about, obviously earlier, Heidi and I have bits of chats about what's going to be important for our listeners out there. And we really want to bring, the idea of psychology practice outside of the therapy room, which is what emotional intelligence skills are. And when I work with parents in the therapy room after their son or daughter has been referred because there is a lot of dysregulation in their emotions, there's a lot of difficult behavior, the first thing that we do is we talk to parents about their own regulation, their understanding. So a bit of psychoeducation around what do they even perceive emotional regulation to be? What is typical development, a typical emotional development for a child? And reframing it to be about co-regulation as well. So I love to do lots of skill building with the parents first and foremost. It has a therapeutic lens on it in the delivery in a psych room, but if we were to shift some of that language, it is actually emotional intelligence skills that can be utilized by all adults, all parents. And that is why I'm so passionate about it, because I feel like it's something that everyone can do.
I love that. I think for me as an educator, sometimes at work I can find it so much easier to stay regulated.
Yes.
But as a parent, I'll often find myself in the most challenging moments in terms of my own regulation in supporting my child. I think when it's your own child, sometimes it can be even harder.
It is.
So if I came to you and I was talking to you about that and I'm struggling with some of my patterns of reaction and my emotional regulation with my children, have you got a strategy or something that I could implement and take away and use straight away?
Yeah. I think what I do with parents then in that moment is we really talk about understanding the triggers first. So let's go through the exact moment of when your son or daughter was experiencing the challenging behavior or challenging emotion, and really breaking down to what was the trigger for you in that moment. And was there some other things happening, obviously, in your environment? But in that really instance, like, what was the trigger for you and how did you respond? So I'm curious about, well, what do you do? And really explore and break down that pattern, reduce some of the shame that's there possibly around that pattern of response. And then we really talk to parents. Well, I love getting parents really much to just sit down and go, okay, if, little Johnny has hit his brother or thrown a truck at him and he's not saying sorry, and then that's triggered the parent, right? That's often a really common trigger that we find. He's just not saying sorry. They don't care about other people's emotions. And then the parent's dysregulation in that moment, emotions are contagious, just keeps this vicious cycle. So it's really important to give parents permission to pause, to name what they're feeling in that moment, and to do a bit of a reframe even with the child to say, I'm actually feeling really upset when I see that behavior. I'm going to go out to the kitchen now for 5 minutes. So you kind of remove and you ignore the actual bad behavior that you're seeing, but you're naming the emotion with the child as well. And emotional intelligence, as we've said before, comes back in the repair with that child afterwards.
Really important. It sounds very much like the strategy that we teach in our workshops,
which is
validate, explore, transform. It's very similar. So again, another example of how therapy and emotional intelligence really do cross over and sometimes can look very similar.
Absolutely. And even the terms that I use with parents around like emotional literacy. It's literally, I say to parents, can you go home and talk to your kids or have up some emotional literacy cards, get the books out, let's expand our emotional vocab and let's model. So I find for parents it's really hard for them to model that in the moment, to name their own emotion, because I think generationally there's just a big chunk of parents who just weren't taught those skills unless it was, just through osmosis through parents over time
Yeah.
who did have it, but there was no explicit teaching of that for a large generation of parents out there. So adults are kind of learning this now.
Yes.
And I find that that's, really interesting as well. And I actually coach parents in the session to help them name the emotion. So if I've done an activity with the kids, like the bear cards, I then get the parents to do it, and they actually struggle more than the kids, which I find really interesting as well.
Yeah.
So it's exactly the same components that we would teach on a larger scale in emotional intelligence skills, but we're doing it one-on-one in a therapy room.
Yeah. Awesome. So I guess we can apply that to some of the workshops that we do offer with parents, as well as with educators. Same kinds of things that we talk about in the workshops around that kind of regulation, skill building.
It's super important work.
Awesome. So just to recap.
Do a recap.
I'm just thinking what I got from that was around really unpacking the trigger.
Yes.
And understanding ourselves as parents and exploring what triggers us in those moments, because sometimes I think what sits behind that can be a schema that we've been developing our entire lives. So it can be really interesting to take some time to unpack why that actually triggers us. Confronting at times as well.
It can be. And that's why some people prefer, the one-to-one approach, which is the therapeutic stuff, or just emotional coaching as well, which is what we love to do too. So,
Awesome.
Thanks, Heidi.
Thanks, Cass. Bye, everyone.